can!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hi, welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right, on the show today, the Indian cricket team may be miles away in Australia playing a series, but clearly not away from the politics that's brewing in the subcontinent. A fan tried to provoke Captain Shubman Gill while he was out on the streets. His reaction has gone viral, but more importantly, what does it say about Indian superstars as opposed to Pakistani cricketers? A politician brings communal accusations into the Indian cricket dressing room and receives massive backlash for it. A repeat offender, here we tell you how baseless all this is. And IOC takes a firm stand against Indonesia for denying Israeli athletes visas. Does this mean the end of the road for their Olympic dreams, and what messaging is coming out of it all? But first, the headlines on Sports 360. Starting with cricket, South Africa comfortably beat Pakistan by 8 wickets to level the 3-match Test series 1-all. Chasing a 68-run target on the 4th day, Captain Aiden Markram scored 42 to help his side win in the first session of play itself. Senuran Muthuswamy was the player of the match for scoring 89 in the first innings. Over in the Women's World Cup, Australia continue their dominant run with a 6-wicket win over England. Thamsin Beaumont's 78 powered the English to 244 in the first innings. In reply, Annabelle Sutherland and Ashley Gardner ran riot. Sutherland scored 98, Gardner made 104 to chase the target down in less than 41 overs. Australia are unbeaten in the tournament so far. Moving to football, Liverpool have ended their 4-match losing streak with a 5-1 win over Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. Despite trailing 1-0, 5 different players scored for the Reds. Hugo Ekitike scored the equaliser. Dominic Schobersley scored the final goal. In chess, former world champion Vladimir Kramnik is facing disciplinary proceedings. This after the outrage over US Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky's death. Naroditsky passed away at 29 earlier this week. The chess fraternity have slammed Kramnik for targeting Naroditsky online. And summing it up with tennis, world number 2, Jannik Sinner has made a winning start in Austria. The Italian won his first round clash against Daniel Altmaier in straight sets. He will now face Flavio Cobolli later tonight. Now, you'd think the Indian cricket team touring Australia in the middle of a tense ODI series against them would be far away from all the politics that's raging on in the subcontinent, but you'd be sorely mistaken. And it was no less either. The newly minted ODI skipper had a brush with this while in Adelaide ahead of the second match. The incident that occurred, though, brought one thing out in the open: how measured and composed Indian cricketers are at all times, especially when faced with an unexpected fan encounter, something Pakistan cricketers have failed to do. So what really transpired? Let me show you that first. The incident took place somewhere in the city in Adelaide. Whilst taking a stroll through the streets, someone came up to Shubman Gill, shook hands with him and then yelled Pakistan Zindabad even as the Indian captain walked away. This could have taken anyone by surprise. But notice how it was all rather surreptitiously staged by the fan himself here, with an intent to shock and stun the Indian cricketer. But the bigger point to note is how composed Gill was during this entire very brief interaction. He doesn't react. He doesn't so much as even flinch or change his expression. He walks on seemingly unperturbed by this very sudden event. An event that was construed to shock and elicit some sort of a reaction, maybe even a retort or a comment from Gill. Now, why do I say this? Because cricket fans who indulge in such behavior the world over, and I'm not alluding to their nationality at all here, they do it for the drama, to get some sort of a response from the cricketer. Like when Pakistan cricketer Haris Rauf was confronted in USA in 2024. Now, that episode was dramatic because Haris Rauf lost his cool. His demeanor, his bearings, he lost his sense of reasoning and came down to almost exchanging blows with this random fan who had approached him, who, by the way, probably happened to be Pakistani. That's what certain reports said. But again, that's not the point I'm making here. It's about how you, an international cricketer who's been in the public eye for years now, a cricketer who represents your country, should react to fans the world over. Fans who cheer and support you, yes, but also the ones who do not. The ones who jeer you, who taunt you. Two similar situations that saw two very contrasting responses. One that displayed poise and a rather dignified manner in which to approach this, and one which resulted in a near physical showdown, something that shouldn't have happened. And that's the difference here between cricketers representing two different countries. The way they carry themselves is proof of how well they navigate tense situations and anything untoward. This is exactly what translates onto the field too, onto the playing arena. Haris Rauf was in fact caught in something similar during the Asia Cup that concluded recently. Hearing a section of Indian fans cheering in the stands behind him, he was fielding along the ropes, he decided to retort, and he did so in a gesture that got him reprimanded by the ICC too later on. Everyone knows what those gestures meant, so I'm not going to go into that here today. But that's the difference between India's stars and Pakistan's cricketers. The very same cricketers respond differently, also in press conferences. The Asia Cup was in fact a very tense, intense tournament where every word, every gesture and action was under scrutiny. A tournament that had heavy political undertones right through. But there was a world of difference between the way the Indian contingent and captain Surya Kumar Yadav handled this all compared to the Pakistani counterparts. Now, while one celebrated without a trophy and did all they could to make do, given the bizarre situation that was playing out in front of them, the other threw the runners-up check they received in disgust afterwards. That's what separates these two sides here. The way you handle any pressure, any ups and downs that comes across your way on the field of play is how you're most likely to handle all of that outside of it too. The sport not only tests your skills and talent on the field, but also your temperament and ability to withstand the pressures that come with playing international sport. And it's simple really. How conducive, positive, forgiving and encouraging your environment is directly proportionate to how strong and mentally astute your players will turn out to be. Success births success. Goodwill generates more goodwill. The system breeds the athletes. And that's what Pakistan will have to wake up to sooner than later. Now, when a player fights his way up throughout domestic cricket, scores the runs, works on his fitness, also his temperament, gets the backing for an India call-up, but doesn't, the least he deserves is clarity. But what shouldn't have been a cricketing debate, what should have been a cricketing debate, in fact, all along, the lines that I just mentioned, has been turned into a communal controversy. All because of one politician, Shama Mohamed, who was chosen to drag Sarfaraz Khan's name into a political circus. Her claim that Sarfaraz was ignored for the India A and South Africa A series because of his religion. Is Shama Mohamed genuinely concerned or even aware of how the sport and its dynamics work? Because this isn't the first time she's caught making such statements that aren't based on facts at all, and might not be the last time either. In her now viral post, she didn't just question selectors here, the Indian cricket team selectors. She went a step further, targeted head coach Gautam Gambhir and hinted that there's bias in the dressing room and the board. Now let's get this straight. If her intention was to question selection policies, the tweet should have ended at "Why wasn't Sarfaraz picked?" That's a fair and a very legitimate question to ask. But she didn't stop there. She twisted it into something uglier and divisive. Now, the moment you add religion into a cricketing debate, into what is supposed to be a cricketing debate, you stop representing fans. Even R. Ashwin, who's always vocal about selection clarity, had raised the very same question, but in the right way.
Can't find any logic behind Sarfaraz's non-selection in the India A side. I feel very, very sad for him. If I were a selector, what would I call and tell Sarfaraz?
That's how true professionals speak, with empathy, with logic, and based on facts, not with political biased venom. Because the truth is, Sarfaraz has done everything that's been asked of him. He's worked on his fitness, he's addressed criticism, and continued to score runs, averaging over 110 in domestic cricket in the last 5 years. So yes, the frustration is understandable, but to give it a communal twist, that's reckless. Even former India all-rounder Irfan Pathan had to step in to call out this narrative.
And the coach will always have a plan. Sometimes it might look wrong in the fans' eyes, but please don't twist things or create narratives that aren't even close to the truth.
And he's right, because we've seen this movie before. Over and over again, Mohammad Shami is at war with the selectors over his non-selection since the Champions Trophy. Shreyas Iyer was not picked for the Asia Cup. Even stalwarts like Kohli and Rohit Sharma are now under constant scrutiny. Will the board trust them till the 2027 World Cup? There's a lot happening already. So no, Sarfaraz's case isn't unique. This is just another example of how quickly public discourse can be hijacked. In fact, sources inside the board have already clarified this. That there's nothing to do with religion or politics and everything to do with form and recovery. That's what was quoted in a media outlet, and that's the real explanation, not the one peddled for retweets. And that's why Shama Mohamed is getting slammed online. Also because this isn't her first dig at Indian cricketers. Not too long ago, she mocked Rohit Sharma for his weight, and when called out, refused to apologize, saying, "Why should I apologize?" She turned a national icon into a political punchline, and now she's stoking another fire using Sarfaraz's name. But this time she's crossed a line, because this is about disrespecting the spirit of Indian cricket itself. India doesn't pick players based on appeasement. It never has. From Mohammad Azharuddin leading the country in the 90s to Shami destroying stumps at the World Cup to Mohammad Siraj, Zahir Khan, the Pathan brothers making India proud, our dressing room has always been defined by unity and not division. To suggest otherwise sets a very dangerous precedence. Sarfaraz Khan deserves his moment. Yes, he's earned it through the runs. He's resilient. He's showing that he is willing to work hard. But what he doesn't deserve is to be turned into a political pawn for someone else's petty games. His bat will do the talking and continue to do so, louder than any politician ever can, because cricket at its heart is still the one place in India where every player wears one badge, one colour and one flag. Some politicians need to be reminded that you can't win votes by dividing the game that unites a billion. When it comes to power, influence and integrity in global sports, few institutions carry the weight of the International Olympic Committee. And this week, the IOC has reminded the entire sporting world what real authority looks like. They've issued a stern call to every sports federation on the planet. They are clear: do not host events in Indonesia, because Indonesia denied visas to Israeli athletes for the ongoing Gymnastics World Championships. Not only has the IOC taken note, but Indonesia's ambitions to host the 2036 Olympic Games may now be as good as dead. So the question is the IOC the only body still standing up for the Olympic spirit? Our next report tells you more.
It all began more than a century ago. The year was 1896, when the modern Olympic Games were revived by Pierre de Coubertin. The purpose was simple: to promote peace, understanding and unity through competition. But in 2025, that Olympic ideal seems long forgotten, because while most sports federations stay quiet, only the IOC is actually walking the talk. The IOC has recommended all global sports federations stop hosting events in Indonesia after the country barred Israeli gymnasts from entering for the World Championships. And let's be clear, Indonesia's decision wasn't just a diplomatic move, it was a direct attack on the Olympic spirit itself. Even though the concern was war, Indonesia went ahead with the suspension even when US President Donald Trump's peace plan came into motion. And despite the outrage, Indonesia is refusing to back down.
We adhere to the principle of maintaining security, public order, and public interest in every international event organized. We understand that this decision carries consequences, wherein as long as Indonesia cannot accept the presence of Israel.
That single statement may have just cost Indonesia its Olympic dream, because the IOC has made it clear that talks for Indonesia's 2036 Olympic bid are off the table too. And Indonesia isn't alone in this growing pattern. Just days ago, UK security officials denied entry to Israeli football fans for a Europa League match between Maccabi Tel Aviv and Aston Villa, despite the British Prime Minister's objections. Before that, an Israeli cycling team was stopped from competing in Italy, and calls to suspend Israeli teams from European football still echo in various countries. Yet despite this rising hypocrisy, most sports federations remain silent. The UCI, cycling's top body, stayed quiet when Israel's team was banned. No statements, no sanctions, no courage, which leaves the IOC standing alone. And this isn't a one-off. Under IOC President Kirsty Coventry, the committee has shown a remarkable consistency. When asked about US President Donald Trump's policies ahead of the LA Games, Coventry did not mince words.
President Trump is a huge supporter of sport. It will take sitting down and having a good conversation with him, sharing with him our values and where we want to be, and being very clear on the different priorities for us as a movement.
A subtle, diplomatic but firm reminder that the IOC answers to no one's politics. And it's not just talk. The IOC has backed those words with action. Remember the Paris Olympics? France had banned its athletes from wearing the hijab, yet when Dutch runner Sifan Hassan won gold and wore her hijab proudly on the podium, the IOC did not object. They did not debate it. They simply respected her choice. That was Olympic freedom in its purest form. And that's exactly what makes the decision on Indonesia so powerful. Maybe just like the 1896 edition, it will be the IOC once again setting the example for the rest of the world to follow.
Time for Last Serve. Nepal is mourning the death of the last surviving link of Mount Everest's first ever summit in 1953. Buddhist monks gathered, rituals were performed during the funeral of Kancha Sherpa. He was part of the historic Everest expedition that saw Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay Sherpa conquer the world's highest peak. His family members, fellow Sherpas and well-wishers paid their final respects to a man who quietly carried the legacy of one of humanity's greatest achievements. that wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll of course see you again tomorrow. Until then, do take care. Bye-bye.